Hello everyone, this is R.S. Miller at the endtimenews.org and today is April 13th, 2014. As tensions in Ukraine continue to escalate, gunfire erupted today between Ukrainian Special Forces and armed pro-Russian militias who had taken over multiple government buildings in the city of Slavyansk. Casualties are being reported on both sides. One Ukraine soldier was killed and 5 others were wounded, while one protester died and several others were wounded. An official in Donetsk issued a statement confirming the one dead, but said that there were 9 others wounded. On Saturday, protesters took over the Slavyansk police station, the first building captured during the latest round of revolts against the government of Kiev, and confiscated approximately 400 police weapons from a storage facility and set up barricades in preparation to defend against Ukraine government troops. In addition, uniformed armed men, presumably pro-Russian militias, have also set up barricade checkpoints in order to restrict access to the city. At this point, I think it's important to note that during the initial media reports concerning the Russian takeover of Crimea, many of those reports stated that these uniformed armed men were either pro-Russian protesters or pro-Russian militias, but evidently they turned out to be armed Russian troops. This may in fact be the case here as well. If so, then this is the continuation of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. According to Ukraine's Interior Minister, Arsen Avakov, the first shots fired came from the pro-Russian militia. He said that the men who seized the buildings in Slavyansk were the ones who had opened fire on Ukrainian Special Forces that were sent to the city. He also called on residents to remain calm and stay home, according to the reports. Since the Kiev protests and subsequent violence back in February, there have been calls by residents for a breakaway referendum from Ukraine and the joining of the Russian Federation. These calls took place in Kharkiv, Donetsk, Odessa, Lugansk, Slavyansk, and several other places as well. Protesters in these areas have taken control of government buildings and hoisted Russian flags. Earlier this week, in an effort to defuse the crisis, Ukrainian Prime Minister Yatsenyuk offered to implement constitutional reforms and to grant amnesty to the protesters. He said that constitutional reforms will satisfy people who want to see more power given to the regions. He went on to say, "I do believe that we need to tackle this problem only in a peaceful manner, but we have made the offer. They are to leave the presence of the state administration, to be disarmed, and we, as the state of Ukraine, can guarantee them that they won't be detained or arrested." Meanwhile, Russia has already warned that if Kiev uses force against the protesters in eastern Ukraine, that it would undermine the effort to convene a 4-party conference on resolving the crisis. The talks would include the US, the EU, Russia, and the Ukraine. Last week, Russia's Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, said that the use of force on the demonstrators in eastern Ukraine was unacceptable and that Russia would not accept Ukrainian force being used. NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen, while visiting Bulgaria, warned that Russia's aggression against Ukraine challenged the vision of Europe whole, free, and at peace. He said, "Russia's attempt to draw new dividing lines in Europe by force, to limit the sovereignty of Ukraine, and to recreate a new sphere of influence run contrary to international norms." He called on Russia to take concrete steps to regain the trust of the international community, pull back its troops from Ukraine borders, and enter a sincere dialogue respecting Ukraine's sovereignty. The Secretary General highlighted NATO's clear interest in the security and stability of its eastern neighbor and NATO's unwavering commitment to collective security. NATO is taking legitimate steps to deal with the instability created by Russia's illegitimate actions, including how we can cooperate more closely here in the Black Sea region. The steps are fully in line with our international commitments and with NATO's fundamental purpose to defend our allies and deter against any threat, he said. Although the Secretary General didn't mention it, his warning to Russia is being backed up by the low-profile movement of multinational fighter aircraft, ships, and troops under the guise of military exercises to the Baltic states regions. Friends, the current escalation in the Ukraine crisis could actually be a precursor for a Russian invasion of eastern parts of the country, perhaps even to as far as Kiev, Ukraine's capital. Let us not forget that the current situation played out in nearly the exact same scenario during the Kremlin's annexation of Crimea. If in fact the Russians are making another move to take over more Ukrainian territory, then it should be evident within the next several weeks or so. However, one thing is for certain, and that is we are living in the last days. The Ukrainian crisis could turn into a thermonuclear war between Russia and the West. But whether it does or not, we are rapidly moving down the road to that great tribulation period, God's judgment on the world. Are you ready? Are you saved? In John 3:16, the Bible tells us, "For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." If you follow the link in the box below and pray the prayer of salvation with a sincere heart, you will be saved. May God bless you and yours.